we are going to speak about how to be representative of a sample when we do NIRS measurement. So when we say representative, we want to say that we are sure we capture with the NIR spectra all the information about the sample in its integrity. So in this context, we need to assume, we assume, that we know about noise instrument, so that we know about our signal to noise ratio, and we are in conformity with recommendation of the suppliers. We also assume that the sample variability prior lab is known. For example, we assume that we know how many routes we need to be representative of a genotype. And we assume as well that sample preparation is standardized, washing, peeling, cutting, everything grounding about sample preparation. And according to this, our mission, as spectroscopist, is to ensure good repeatability and reproducibility of the NIR measurement and ensure a good representativeness of the sample received. To do this, it requires to measure, of course, instrumental noise, so signal to noise ratio, and to measure the variability between different scans, and to be able to fix the number of subsamples of one sample. So sample representativeness, it's similar to sample variability. And we have mainly 4 cases of samples. So we have homogeneous sample with target constituent well distributed inside the sample, so like powder, liquid, puree. We can have medium homogeneous sample with target constituent well distributed, like powder with high particle size, beans, for example, and raw material like paddy rice. We can have some non-homogeneous material with target constituent well distributed, like cocoa or coffee beans. That's much bigger and very different between the beans of coffee, but all the constituents inside the beans are well distributed. It could be chopped forage, for example, or sugarcane. And we can have non-homogeneous sample with gradient for the target constituent. It is the case for roots and tubers, for whole roots and tubers, for fruits, peels, emulsion, or wood. So we need to find a common criterion for variability characterizations. And one of these criteria that we can see in another webinar, but just to see what we are going to use today, we will see it in more details in another webinar. It could be root mean square. Root mean square, it's similar to dispersion of the N spectra around the average spectra. And today we are going to do a focus on non-homogeneous sample with gradient of the target constituent, which is similar to the problem we face with roots and tubers. So to do the webinar today, I chose an example, an experiment which has been done by Pablo Fonseca from AgroSavia in Colombia with the help of Luis Londoño from CIAT, John Bellacazar from CIAT, Thierry Tran from CIAT, and Fabrice Vaillant from CIRAD. So the purpose of the experiment is to develop measurement of whole avocado fruits using NIR for dry matter and fat content determination. So the purpose of this experiment was to fix the number of spectra, minimum spectra or optimum spectra to do per fruit to be representative of the fruit. So for the experiment, we started on 10 avocado mature fruits. We did three zones in the fruit: peduncle, equatorial, and base zone. So here, I don't see, you see the mouse maybe. So here and here for the base zone. And for each zone of the fruit, we have done 3 spectra. So it means 9 spectra per fruit and a total of spectra for 10 fruits, 90 spectra. For the same fruits, we sampling all the individual scanned plots. So the free plots for the free scanning plot for the peduncle and for the equatorial and basis. So we do have 9 pieces per fruit, so 90 samples. And so we did 90 determination for dry matter value. So the description of the experiment is here. We used FOSS DS 2500 spectrometer. So the measurements are done in reflectance mode. So the avocado was put on the window just like this, and we put during the measurement a black box to be sure to avoid all parasite light. So that's what we call the NIRS black box. So if we go to the results, we can see that wet chemistry, so the determination of dry matter in the lab by oven determination. So there is a gradient for dry matter according to the zone of the fruits. So with low content from equatorial zone and higher content for peduncle zone. And the second graphic is average value of dry matter for the 10 fruits we measured. So it's average value of all the different individual dry matter determined. In the same time, if we do the calculation of root mean square, individual root mean square per zone, it confirms that there is a spectral variability linked to the zone. You can see here the different RMS in microabsorbance value measured or calculated by zone on the replicate by zone for all the fruits. So with higher variability for peduncle within the spectra and lower for equatorial zone. We can also use PCR analysis to catch variability and to analyze variability within in the spectra. So this is a this is a principal component analysis, relies on the 90 samples and spectra done in the lab, and the color are according to the zone. And you can see here that the highest variability is for peduncle spectra, and the lower variability is for equatorial spectra. So it's similar to RMSE. It's another way to catch and to interpret the variability within spectra, but it gives the same results. So if you look at all the RMSE, so root mean square individual value for all the spectra, for the 90 spectra, for all the zone and all replicate per zone, we can see here that there is a trend to be constant in repeatability. And sometimes some samples are out, like we can see in PCR analysis. And we can see from this graphic that peduncle replicate present higher variability. And here are the mean value for each zone for the calculated root mean square. So root mean square and PCR is a good opportunity to interpret and to see the variability. But and we have seen in this case that we have in the lab a gradient for dry matter. So we can imagine that we need at minimum to take a spectra for each zone of the spectra. To go further, we can use the lab value to do a calibration. So the purpose of the study is not to do the best calibration of the world for dry matter, is to use the potential of calibration to see if we can use how we can use a subsample to do the model. So the first model is done with the 90 sample and is almost good model for dry matter. So that means that the work in the laboratory and NIRS was well done. And we have a clear trend for dry matter according to the spectra. So with a standard error of cross-validation in this one. So we use for this calibration 3 spectra per zone, so 9 spectra per foot. What's about performances if only 1 spectra per zone for calibration is used? So that's what we did. We did 3 calibrations using only replicate one for each zone. So it means 30 samples for each calibration. And we do the calibrations. So, and we use this calibration to predict the remaining set of replicate. So for example, for calibration 1, using replicate 1, we predict replicate 2 and 3. So 60 sample, and we add a standard error of predictions. So if we compare this to the original to the calibration using all the sample, we can see that performances are close between when we use only 1 replicate to do the calibration is close to the calibration to the performances obtained when we use all the sample, except for replicate 3, that it's really different from the performances of calibration. So these results is not good for us, because we are not able to say if we can use one replicate, because the situation of replicate 3 says that we need at least to use 2 replicate. But we can go deeper in this interpretation by using principal component analysis, and we do the same, but in this time we don't use calibration, we use PCA spaces. So we do one PCA using only replicate 1. And when you do this PCA, then we project replicate 2 and 3 on the space from PCA on replicate 1. And you can see here that the variance of replicate 2 and 3, the dispersion of replicate 2, 3 are taken in account by replicate 1. It's the same when we use replicate 2 and we do a PCA only with sample from replicate 2, and we project on this space sample from replicate 3, 1 and 3. And in the same when we use replicate 3 to do the PCA and the projection of replicate 1 and 2. So the conclusion is that 1 spectra per zone is sufficient to capture variability. That means 3 spectra per foot. And what explained about replicate 3, what we observed just before for this on replicate 3, this is not due to spectra variability not catch, but replacer tweet on higher variability. This is due to higher dispersion in dry matter determination in lab. In fact, the poor prediction here is because these samples are the one outlier, even in the when we use the 90 samples, sample coming from replicate 3 as the one outlier from the lab value. So it means we do have some problem on this sample, not for the spectra, but for the lab value. So PCR was a good complement analysis to do this, to be sure that we can use only 1 spectra per foot, 3 spectra per foot, 1 spectra per zone, sorry. So in conclusion, RMS criterion is a good criterion to catch variability between spectra, and easy to interpret, easy to calculate, and easy to estimate if you do a special design of experience. Root mean square is useful to fix number of subsample. We will see it more in details in another webinar, because I've done some simulation about RMS determination. But at this point, we can say that PCA adds pertinent information about representativeness of big heterogeneous samples, and PCA associated to calibration development based on an optimal design of experience help efficiently to fix the number of subsamples. And coming soon in another webinar, we will see that what we have done in CIAT for cassava puree to determine for the calibration of carotenoid content. So it was not possible to do what we have done for avocado here, because analyze for carotenoid is complex, and we need to have a big range to try to do the calibration. So it's not easy to start a design of experience and try to do the calibration to see the optimum number of subsample to do. We used to do that root mean square estimation, calculation of individual spectra, and you will see in another webinar that we decided to do only 2 sampling from 3 roots per genotype, peeled, ground as puree, and we did 2 sampling on the puree and only 2 spectra. Then we calculated all the RMS root mean square value for all the replicate, and prior doing the calibration, we decided to check all the outliers, and in some cases we remove these samples prior to calibration, so we didn't send this sample to lab determinations because we thought that there is a problem with the spectra. So you see that for 1,700, more than 1,700 samples, only few samples were rejected according to our choice to do only 2 sampling per sample. I would like to thank, of course, Pablo Emilio Rodriguez, who is the coordinator of the project from AgroSalvia on the project on avocado, with the help of Fabrice Vaillant. Of course, I would thank Luis Londoño, who is the leader of NIRS analysis and laboratory analysis in CIAT, with the help of John Belacazar and Thierry Tran. I would like to thank, of course, RTB Food Project and Bill and Melinda Gates Foundations. And as usual, I thank all my colleagues from WP3 Teams. Thank you to everybody for listening to me.
Thank you, Fabrice, and thanks to the team, because it's a collaborative work, as you have mentioned, and it was a work done before RTB Food. So because it was applied to an avocado, as you have very well shown, the challenges are the same as we are facing in RTBs. So thanks for this very clear and concise presentation on the approach to design a sampling that allows to capture the variability within heterogeneous samples. So thanks a lot. If there are any questions, remarks, suggestions for Fabrice, there's a question from Dominique first. Dominique, do you want to ask your question directly to Fabrice? Dominique?
Yes, Fabrice, nice presentation, congratulations. But you know that cassava and yam are very variable in size, in shape, in color, and how we will manage that with the QualiSpec or the portable NIRS to be able to be representative for all the shape and all the form for yam or for cassava. Do we add to replicate this experiment for all the crop that we want to evaluate or not?
Well, the answer is when you don't know, you need to do this experiment. So when you don't know, you need to have an idea of the variability you observe using the spectra. Your question about the size and the shape and everything about the genotype, I would like to say that is what I say in the first slide. You see my screen?
Not anymore.
No.
Oh, why?
Because you stopped sharing, probably.
Me? I do nothing. Can I do it again? So, how can I do that again?
Le petit rectangle vert en bas.
Ouais, mais il apparaît plus. Anyway, so what I said in the first slide, it was that the sample variability prior to the lab is supposed to be known. When you do other measurement on your roots, you have to do the same. You have to know the variability of your roots. If you do, I don't know, density, color, anything. So it's the same problem. So it's supposed to be, of course, NIRS can help you to do that because it's powerful that you can do a lot of spectra and try to see what's happened, even if you don't have an idea of the constituent. But most of the case, it's supposed to be known. If you work on a product, it's supposed to work with somebody who knows this product, and you're supposed to know the variability, how many roots you need to be a representative of sample. If you work on beans, you know how many, for example, on coffee, you know exactly how many bags of coffee you have to sample to be representative of a lot. Of a batch of coffee. So it's the same for me, it's the same here. We can help using NIR to do this work, but for me, this kind of work should be done before. But it's the same. If you want to do it by NIR, you have to do a special design and you have to do the measurement and to interpret what you see. Like we have done for avocado, it's the same. Just think the design of experience to be optimum, just to do something that will give you the answer you ask. So you have to do a special experimental design that you will have the answer you ask. Here we knew before doing the measurement that there is a gradient for fat content and dry matter in avocado. It was confirmed by dry matter measurement, but we knew that before. So we did the experiment to exist in account.
Thank you.
There's a question from Gérard first. Have you tested quartering in your experiments? Because it seems to be very important for some crops, such as sweet potato, banana.
What is quartering? What is quartering?
I think to split in quarters. Gérard, yes, please.
Thank you very much, Eglantine. Quartering is a process, Fabrice, is a process where you cut the fruit or the crops into 4 pieces, and you take the two opposite pieces.
Yes, but why you want me to do that? We want to do the spectrum on the whole fruit because the future application of this is to measure the whole fruit.
Yes, but it also helps to have a measurement on the whole fruit, because there you've used 3 places, 3 positions. The base, the equator, and the head, I think, as I saw in your presentation.
Yes, in fact we took 9 pieces of the fruit using this experimental design, so it was almost all the fruit in the lab. 9 pieces of the fruit, 3 pieces per zone. It was almost all the fruit in the lab.
Because you see, avocado, for example, the configuration is not like bananas, for example.
Sure, but you have to adapt your experimental design to the specificity of the product, of course. And I'm sure that banana, for example, is definitely not the same because the skin is not the same. So
yes, I agree.
So probably it's not the same kind of information you get from banana. So I'm working on pineapple at this moment in Réunion, and pineapple it's a challenge to be representative of a whole fruit.
Okay.
So I agree. I understand what you say now with quarterly. It's another way to do. It depends of how you want to do your measurement, but it's a good way to do the measurement for the lab. You mean to do the sampling and to go to the lab? Yes.
Yes. I think that one is better for homogeneous sample. We can do that for homogeneous samples, as you explained.
Yes. Sure. Sure.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Please.
Thank you, Fabrice. There's a question from Ephraim. To what extent is RMS relevant in an already processed sample, like flour?
Sorry?
To what extent is RMS relevant in a product like flour, so a processed product?
Let me try to find the comments. Where are the comments on the...
in the chat box.
Tell me, I don't understand what you say, sorry.
Est-ce que l'RMS est pertinente pour un produit comme la farine qui est déjà transformée?
Of course. Sorry. Yes. RMS is maybe more pertinent on flour and grown products because it's very easy to interpret. So if we do the next webinar, you will see that I started to work on to do the demonstration. I started on flour, on powder. So you will see that I do my simulation on powder using spectra from powder, to see how many samples how we can use RMS without lab value. In this case, how can we use only RMS value to decide the number of subsamples we can do? Hello?
Yes,
sorry,
thank you, Fabrice. There are 2 questions from Emmanuel. Emmanuel, do you want to ask your question directly, or do you want me to ask these 2 questions to Fabrice?
Yeah, to save time, maybe you ask, but I just want to do a follow-up on Gerard's question, which later on after probing, we got the answer to it. For Harvest Plus method is the quartering method, which been tested, especially for cassava roots and tubers, in order to obtain a representative sample instead of having 9 spectra, just to reduce the cost and so on. But basically, we deal with biophysical trait. We did not look at the needs. So, but the crops, it depends on the crops on which type of method of obtaining samples. So, but my question is related to that. You know very well that the reference value, the quality of reference value, is a factor, key factor in all the process that you have mentioned in terms of measuring the repeatability. Now, what is the SL, standard error of laboratory, for the DM which you use for the avocado? That is one. Then number two, how did you obtain a representative sample for each part to measure the dry matter? Do you use a special instrument or you break them into pieces? How do you obtain a representative sample from each part? That is the peduncle, equator, and that of base. Thank you.
Yes, it's not really the purpose of this experiment to do the calibration, as I said. So we don't care about the performances in absolute of the calibrations. But just to inform you, the standard error of laboratory is about 0.2, something like this. So it's easy to do dry matter determination. So it's 0.2 or less than 0.2 for LCL. And then for cutting the different part and sampling the spot of the near spectra, they use a special instrument calibrated to take in the fruit to go to the lab. It's not really complicated to do that. It's okay.
Does it answer your question, Emmanuel?
Yeah, it's okay. We will discuss further. Thank you. It's fine.
Yes, we can discuss this deeper. It's not really the purpose of this because it's more the side of the project coordinated by Pablo. But we can discuss with Pablo of this if you want.
Yeah. Because even if you obtain the spectra, the purpose of obtaining the spectra is we will use part of it to develop the calibration. So it's very important as well. So when we are doing the RMS, but so that's what I like.
As you can see, maybe you can see my screen now, no?
Yes, we can.
Can you see my screen? Yes. So as you can see here, in fact, it's not so bad. Even if we are in this experiment, we didn't focus on having the best calibration, but even like this is not so bad. So we have seen that we have probably from replicate free, as I said, these samples are from replicate free outlier according to lab value, but already the experiment was done in perfect condition because we already have almost a good calibration for dry matter. Of course, as I say, for the cell, standard error of laboratory is 2 times less than this one. But the purpose of this study was to decide minimum of spectra. In fact, we decided to do 2 spectra per zone because we do have time to do that for the calibration. It's not so it don't take so many times. So we do 2 spectra per zone. But even with 1 spectra per zone, so 3 spectra per foot, I'm sure that we can do calibration for dry matter. And we also started to do the calibration for fat content as well. And I'm sure it will work as well. So it's special because it's dry matter and fat content. And we know that, especially in avocado, that it's major constituent. It's not carotenoid. Yes. It's not carotenoid. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
There's a question from Didier. Do you plan to apply this method on plantain? I think it is something to be discussed with the plantain team.
What we can do, yes, of course. I remember that when we were in Nigeria, I already proposed this kind of experiment on cassava and yam. Exactly the same, but not in the same. It was not equatorial ossis. It was distal, proximal, medium. It was the same experiment. So we can discuss with the team. That's what we plan with Emmanuel to do for the next period to standardize all the SOP. So we want to standardize the SOP with Emmanuel, Karima, Denis, and Thomas. And we plan to do a specific experiment to standardize the SOP that will include the number of samples to be representative. So if we have to work on plantain, we will have to do that, of course. We will have to do that. Even if we decide to do more than minimum of spectral recur, we need to have an idea of spectral representativeness and spectral variability. So homogeneity of our product. So we need to do that.
2 questions from Enoch. Is repeatability among spectra influenced by the equipment?
Of course. Of course, I've seen these questions from Enoch. Of course, Enoch, because as I say, it depends of the specificity. So it depends of the ratio to noise, especially ratio to noise of the instrument. It depends of the sensibility of the instrument. So many things. So of course, it depends of the range of wavelength also. So of course, probably, for example, we know that for noise spectra, it's not the same for ASD and force instrument. If you do RMS, because RMS is first you apply it to noise spectra, is to see the repeatability of the noise. So you apply RMS to noise, and you will see that for ASD is 10 or more than 10 times higher than for force instrument. So of course, instrument will have a part in that, but it will not change the heterogeneity or not of the sample. It's just more sensitive to detect it or not, but it will not change the heterogeneity of the sample. Only the perception you get from it. There is a complement to your question, and notice. Have you tried to estimate RMS on wall roots versus? Yes, of course, because we have done on Purée and wall root, but the intuition says that it's more heterogeneous on wall roots than homogeneous. How would you say, homogeneous sample, and that's the work done by please Dominique Hugo. Hugo has done this work using ASD quality spec. He do wall roots, wall pieces, not wall roots, but pieces of wall roots of cassava. Then he do Purée. Then he do the spectra Purée on spectrometer. He use the calibration from developed on the Purée to put as reference value for the spectra on wall root, and he did the calibration of spectra of root. It was not so bad for carotenoid. You can find the publication of this and of this result.
Hugo Choukou from NRCRI.
Yes.
One question from Ismail related to the trade-offs between accuracy and throughput in the use of NIRS. More samples, more scans per sample, etc., gives more accuracy, but that makes the process low throughput, especially for field breeding applications.
My question is, alors c'est celle-là la question, c'est Ismaël.
It's more a remark.
My question is related to the trade-off between accuracy and throughput in the use of NIRS. More sample, more scan per sample, etc. gives more accuracy, but makes the process low throughput for field breeding. So that's why we are working at the optimization of number of spectra to be representative. Is to save time, to save manipulation, and to take advantage of NIRS. So that's why we try to do that. That's why we try to do a spectra on a wall material without preparation, because we want to save all the time of preparation. We don't want to peel, to ground, to you understand? The same. I agree with your remark.
Yeah, maybe Fabrice, I can follow up with just why I asked this question. Because sometimes when we try to develop and optimize the application for fields, sometimes we are met with a sort of like a pushback, saying that that protocol is not approved and is not the right SOP because you're doing less sample and somebody else did 50 spectra per root and you are only doing 3 or 6, or somebody else did the mashing and you're not doing the mashing and so on. So I think you're the expert and you can help us to moderate this kind of discussions and find a better balance. Yeah.
Yes, it could be a part of our workshop for next period during the annual meeting. We need to because it's interesting. It's important for WP4, it's important for breeders, and it's important for WP2. So we need to have a common discussion on this and to try to find a common strategy to standardize SOP for NIRS, SOP for lab value, and how to give the right procedure to breeder to use the instrument to do the prediction. I agree.
Yes, and there is many people working with QualiSpec in Uganda, in Brazil, now in Colombia and Nigeria. And I think we need to work with standard of operation for cassava on the different place, because it's very important that they produce good spectra for good prediction.
Yes, but for the moment, you know why we did like this for the 3 period already passed, because it was the first things we wanted is to do calibration. Remember, I put back the side on CIAT. Remember on CIAT, we don't spend too many time to decide how many samples to do per sample. If you remember well, we say we did this experiment and we say, okay, 2 samples, fine, and we try like this. That's what we did, and we reach a calibration. So of course, it's important to do that, but it's also important to go a step ahead and to do the calibration. So if we spend too much time to do, the advantage of NIR is that if you can do easily scan. So when you want to do calibration, if it's especially like carotenoid, a complicated constituent to determine in the lab, it's important to don't spend too much time on spectra. You always have time to select, as we have done here, to remove all the non-correct spectra and to do the calibration with the other. Because what we need is to do calibration. So what was important, what was saving time in this case was you already known that we need 3 roots per genotype. That's why this was very important, because we decide to take 3 roots because you know that already. And we decide to do puree because we wanted to go first to the most homogeneous and especially for carotenoid, as we know that there is a gradient, to be sure that we will be able to do the prediction, to give opportunity to breeder to do the selection. That's what we did. It took 3 years to reach a relevant calibration. So we saved time at the beginning, but it took 3 years to do the calibrations, if you remember.
I think.
Yes.
Yes, Emmanuel. Yes, please.
Yeah. I think Ismail is. I share from his point of view, and when we are developing the SOPs and protocol, we need to put it in mind that we have to make a trade-off there. That is what he's trying to say, to make it easy for the breeders to use on the field. So, for example, from the avocado experience, now if instead of having 3 parts to take spectra from 3 parts, if it's only 1 part and it's giving you a square of 0.7, I think breeder will go for that in order to do their selection, than to have 3 parts and then you have a better accuracy. So that's what what Ismail is trying to say. Yes, we are going to take that into consideration to make life easier for breeders. Thank you.
Yes, of course, I agree. Yeah. That's our objective. We want to resume to summarize the SOP, to standardize the SOP, to homogenize the SOP, and especially to give a clear procedure for breeder to do the measurement once we will get the calibrations. So our next job with Karima, Emmanuel, Denis, and Thomas, it will be to standardize this SOP and to go to each team and to each product and to decide with the team a specific design of experience to be sure of, according to the sample preparation and sample presentation in NIR, to decide how many samples it requires to be representative.
Before we stop, there's a question from Michael. Michael, you have raised your hand.
Thank you, Eglantine. And that was a very great and precise presentation from Fabrice. Thank you for that. I quickly want to ask if the Avogadro was analyzed intact. If this is possible with Avogadro, I think as soon as possible, we need to establish this on a fresh cassava, intact cassava, and intact yam, especially for the field-friendly spectrometer like ASD. I think we need to establish this. We have done similar thing for the tabletop, calculating the RMS of 10 replicate scan from an intact root. And I think we need to replicate these on field portable devices like the ASD. Then secondly, can this also be applicable to products like EBA? For instance, in IIT, we work on EBA. Can we also replicate these on EBA to establish the number of spectra we need to collect to obtain the required spectral good for calibration development? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Of course, Michael, you can do that on any kind of product, but don't make a confusion. It's not because on avocado, don't make the confusion between the number of spectra required to be representative and the capacity of NIR to predict the constituent you want to predict. It's not the same thing. On avocado, of course, we have done dry matter and it works on intact fruits, but probably on other fruit or other products like pineapple, for example, it will not work because the skin is not related to the pulp of the fruit, for example. I remember when I was working on mandarin for Brix determination, for total sugar determination, on whole fruit, it works, but it failed when the skin of the mandarin was different, when it was completely soft. For all the mandarins, it works. But when I had mandarin with non-soft skin, it doesn't work anymore. So there is two different things. Of course, we can do on any kind of product, even what you want, you can measure by NIR, you can do the determination of variability using root mean square, using PCR analysis. And you will see in the next webinar, there is many ways to measure variability, in fact. So you can do this on any kind of product. This is only to give you an information about the repeatability and the representativeness of your spectra. And of course, so an information about the homogeneity of your product. It's not the same once you have the spectra to get to the calibration. So there is no, because you are able to do spectra, no assurance that you can do a good calibration. It depends on the presentation of query. For example, carotenoids on cassava, we know that if we start on puree, it will be more easier, more accurate to do it. So it depends on what you want at the end. So maybe we can do carotenoid from the whole fruit. And Hugo shows that. But the accuracy, the performance of the calibration was lower than the one we get on puree, of course. So don't make the confusion between how we can do representative spectra and how we can do a good calibration. It's not the same thing. There is a relation, because if you do the right number of spectra and if you are representative of the product, you get more chance to do good calibration. But there is not an assurance according to the presentation of the product, especially if the raw product is completely different. I have a good example of this on protein determination on rice. If one time we have time, I will show you that. We started from raw rice, paddy rice, to ground rice, and we did spectra at each step of the transformation of the transformation of the product. And we did, of course, determination of protein on the final product, on the raw powder, on flour, rice flour. And we use this determination to do calibration according to each set of spectra, from the raw rice to the end, to the powder. And we show that, in this case, for proteins, that we lose very slow performances in calibration to protein if we do spectra from the paddy rice. So you see, so in some cases you can do that. So my advice I say at the beginning of the project, that if we can do the spectra at the beginning, do the spectra at the beginning, because it doesn't take so much time to do the spectra. Then you do the spectra at the first transformation and the second transformation until EBA or FUFU or something like this, of course. Okay.
Is that okay, Michael?
Thank you very much. I'm okay.
Please.
Thank you.
I think it is to be continued. There's Elizabeth and Xiaofei. I will ask Xiaofei to conclude. Elizabeth, first, do you have a comment, question to Fabrice?
Yeah, thank you so much, Fabrice, for the nice presentation. Very clear and excellent. But I see your slide on now, and it's saying 3 routes per genotype peeled ground puree. You know, for Harvest Plus, for carotenoid, somebody asked about the cottonization, where you divide it into 4 and you choose the opposite side before you now process. So what do we do? Is it to say that that is not an efficient method? Because I know people in SIAT, they also checked for total carotenoid. So what were they doing? I know they used to blend. Is that what you are talking about as a puree? So, yes. So maybe in your next webinar, come back to let us know what are the deficiencies with the methods we are using. But we look at try to create a homogeneity so that we can.
Yes, your question is more. Yes, thank you. Your question is more related to lab determination, in fact.
Yeah.
It's more in relation with lab determination, so it's more in relation with WP2. That's why I say we need to do a common meeting and workshop on this sampling representativeness. Sorry, because we don't really address the same question when we use spectra and lab value. Maybe your question is more related to WP2 purpose.
Okay.
And Xiaofei, do you still want to add something on what on the top of what has already been mentioned by Emmanuel, Ismail, and Michael regarding the need for SOP for ISD quality spec?
Yes, thank you very much, Ignatin and Fabrice. So that's really the great presentation, and also it's good time for us at SIAT. So now so probably next month we are going to have our quality spectral in. So we are going to test. To develop protocol how to use quality spectral for cassava, especially for fresh cassava. So I think we have discussions before through emails. Probably maybe next month or in the near future, we need to schedule a meeting to talk about that. So we need your help to to develop the procedure how to sample the roots to measure the variation within the roots and also among roots. Yeah. So, and also I agree with Dominic. So we have in several institutions, we have this very expensive equipment to quality spectrum. So we need to work together to develop a protocol. So thank you very much for your great job and a great support. Yeah.
Yes, it's definitely the right moment to start this with you, because we are going to think about as we said standardized SOP for ISD, so it will be the right. You already have wrote a very nice design of experience, so we will use this one to do the experiment. We will adapt this one. So perfect.
Yeah, thank you.
So thanks a lot. I think it's time to conclude. Congratulations, Fabrice. We have seen that this presentation, this short and brief presentation, has raised a lot of questions, a lot of comments, and we can see clearly that there's a need for standardized SOPs with clues on the proper number of spectra per product presentation, especially for portable device as a ASD quality spec. So before we conclude, as we agreed with Fabrice, I would like to ask you 2 questions: whether you would be willing to participate to a masterclass on on sampling, let's say sampling for representativeness, and by when. So I think I have launched a poll. If you see it on your screen, you may access to the poll. Fabrice, do you see the poll on your screen?
Yes. You want me to share it or?
No, I'm sure everybody should be able to access. No, everybody should be able to access the poll and provide answers. So there's an opportunity where, we decided not to schedule any webinar for the next month, for the whole month of April. So there's an opportunity to have this masterclass in 2 weeks on April 9th at the same time. And it would be a masterclass, maybe a 1-hour masterclass, maybe even a little bit more. And Fabrice, as we can see, it raised a lot of questions. So it can be on April 9th, same time, or it can be...
I will say 1 hour because we will change the hour. So it will be 1 hour earlier for me. So,
okay, it can be a 1 hour earlier. Yes, it would be earlier for basically...
yeah, well...
Yes,
we will change, so it will be 1.
Yes, we'll see. We will discuss that the exact time. So in 2 weeks, April 9th, or it can be during a morning, during the annual meeting week. So during the week of April 12th, April 15th, during the morning. So if everybody's voting, Fabrice, we will see the results together and we will provide our decision. Is that okay for you, Fabrice? We discuss on the results. For now, the 93% of people will.
Yes, I lost. How can I see back your? I lost your poll. Comment on le fait revenir? How can I do it again? Il est là derrière. Okay. Yes, I agree. I am on one day during the annual meeting April. Okay. No. Yes, of course, we will discuss of this when we get the results.
Yes, okay. I can share my screen directly now. Let me share my screen if you see it. But most people agree to. Okay, partager. Do you see it now?
Yes.
So there are 90% people willing to participate, and most of them on April 9th. Same time, so in 2 weeks. If you see my screen, I'm not sure whether you see my screen or not, but...
No, we don't have the result. We see the masterclass. But
okay.
We see only the masterclass. We see that there is 2 questions. Yeah, it's okay. Yes. 94% of the participants agree and 61% on April 9.
So we'll...
what we can suggest is if somebody has similar data to present, he can do also a presentation.
I think you have the most advanced experience, if I'm not mistaken, on this.
And I already have a presentation done, so
yes.
The presentation, the PowerPoint is already done, so it's not a problem.
Okay, so I think we can agree on April 9th, and we will share times with people, with the participants.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so thanks a lot, everybody, for joining today's webinar. So we agree that we will continue with a masterclass on this topic, which is a major topic, opening lots of questions. And for the regular webinars, we will see each other in May. On May 7th, we will have no webinar in between because we have the annual meeting week, and then we will need time to have rest probably on PMU side. And we will probably start a cycle of webinars dedicated to the presentation of SOPs currently available within RTB Foods framework for the characterization of quality traits for RTB products. So we will probably start this cycle. We will probably ask some of you if you're willing to present the SOPs that you have developed or that you have written down. And it will start in May, as I mentioned. So thanks again, everybody. Thanks, Fabrice, a lot. And we keep in touch for this masterclass on sampling and representativeness. And have a nice end of week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you for the discussion. It was very interesting.
Bye, Fabrice.
you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Thank you. Merci beaucoup.
Merci
De rien.